Welcome back to Team Spirits. This is Carrie.
And I'm Lauren.
And I'm Emily.
And today we have a guest appearance who we're so excited to have here today. Our dear friend. She's also in the mentorship program with Emily and I, one of our soul sisters, Becky. Say hi, Becky.
Hi. I'm so nervous, but thank you guys for having me.
Don't be nervous. Seriously, it's fun. So I think today the plan is we're going to be talking about deities, what deities we work with, what deities we have experiences with, our best practices for kind of leaning into that energy, how we honor them, how we work with them, and just everything in between. So Lauren, do you want to get us started?
Sure. So I think my first time actually really working with a deity is when I was having these really bad night terrors, and every single time a spider was involved with it. And eventually I was like, okay, they're coming up when I'm in these stressful situations, but like, why is it always a spider? So I started doing all of this research about spider dreams, stories about spiders in witchcraft or universal things. And there's a deity, her name is Ariane Road, and I was wrong. She's actually Welsh. Or honestly, there's a lot of things like that intertwine with her. There's different stories, and people think she might be Greek. I've seen Celtic and now Welsh. So there's just a lot with her. And I think she is her story is very, I think, misunderstood. I think she is the classic woman in history who was kind of a strong woman, and men hated that. And so they create this really horrid story about her. But when I was doing this research and I felt this strong connection with her as she was reaching out to me to also be strong, and I'm having these stressful situations, these reactions from it, and her reaching out to be like, you're stronger than this. And when I started working with her, those night terrors stopped. And I then had started going backtracking through my spell work or the things that I had been looking up. And I realized she's connected with a constellation that I would put in with some of my star magic and all this information that was just so eye-opening. And it was one of those moments when it just clicked. And I was like, I'm not alone. And this person's with me. And she reached out to me. And that was just really, really cool. And I've worked with archangels. That's when me calling out to them. Specifically recently, I've been working with Archangel Ariel for animal help, which she's really big with nature, animals, those sorts of things. So I call on them when I'm in a time of need. So I'm not feeling so also alone and hopeless. And I have something to feel like I'm being held up and believe in. So that's like, those are my experiences. I'll work with Bridget in the spring, or Hestia in the spring, Bridget in the late winter, and those kind of go with the seasons and the holidays that I work with them. But Ariane Road is the one who reached out to me. The other ones I more reached out to. What about you guys?
Well, I was going to say, as far as Ariane Road, how would you describe her energy when you're working with her?
So she's very powerful, which I think is why the stories about her were written the way that she was classified, as this really awful mother, awful woman, castaway type person. But she doesn't really like to share. So that is why I pretty much exclusively work with her. I think that goes for a lot of them. I think when they want your attention, they want to work with you. You should honor them, and you should really give them the attention when they're asking for it. And when you're ready to work with other ones, you have that conversation with them. And I do a lot of research on deities that she maybe has had in stories with in other religions, or what she could maybe be involved in. And so that's how I work with her in that way. But her presence was just, I mean, it felt scary because I'm having these very scary interactions. It was the night terrors where like I can see things, my eyes are open, and I see the spiders in my bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was those wake up calls. So she was very, very strong. But once I was working with her, it was this like sisterhood bond. It was so cool. Like it makes my arm hair stand to think that like I get to work with her and she wants to work with me.
Yeah, I love that. We'll be honest, I've only been really started work with them over the last month or so, I would say. The one I really want to talk about who I have been working with more and more, and it's just they always come in when I feel like you're going through stuff. Like and they have like they're specialized in certain things that they can help you with. And it's like and even some of them like across the board, they can help empower you. Sure. They can help with your confidence. Sure. They can help with your shadow work, but they all have different energy to them. And it's like, what do you need in that moment? Do you need a kick in the ass, or do you need a deity that's more nurturing and loving, because that part of you is missing, or you don't do that enough for yourself? So for me right now, my biggest focus is Freya. She's the Nordic goddess. I'm still learning a lot about her, like history wise. And I feel like whenever you do research on deities, there's a lot you have to shuffle through. Like it's not black and white. And you have to use your discernment, like with anything, you have to use your discernment with doing your research on deities, because there's also a lot of stuff out there, that's more negative in working with deities, and and it's more like religious based, and you have to be careful of that. But my first experience with her, I could definitely, I never had heard of her before. And out of nowhere, like I just kept hearing her name. Like I would hear somebody would be talking about Freya, or, I would be in a live and Freya would come up, or I would get a reading and Freya would come up. So it was just like her name just kept coming up. And I was very intrigued. And it was just so odd. And this is silly. But at the same time, I started watching Vikings. And you hear Freya all the time, because that's she's the goddess of fertility, and she's honored like very heavily in that TV show. And I was like, okay. So I started working with a friend who is really great at like deity identification, and she does short classes. I sit with her once a week for an hour, and she helps me with the deities that I want to work with, or that I feel are in my energy for whatever reason. And when I first connected with Freya, it was so unbelievably powerful. The mothering energy I felt and the nurturing that I felt, it didn't feel scary. It felt very much like a hug, like an actual hug. And I remember because I was working with our friend Ruthie, and she wasn't expecting me to just start bawling my eyes out. Like her energy just made me, there was a release there. There was just a part of me that I'd been suppressing for so long. And I didn't even understand why I was crying. I didn't know why, I felt like this just was like bubbling up. And I mean, it wasn't just it was a sob, like a very vocal cry. And Ruthie was like, holy shit. And, working with her, I'm taking steps day by day just to take better care of myself, to give myself grace. Like we talked about in our, previous episode, getting through or getting out of the mindset of hustle all the time. And she's really like helping me to give myself grace through that of, respecting my energy, respecting where I am right now. And if I don't feel up to it, then okay, then what steps are we going to take in the form of self-care that isn't necessarily crawling in a ball in your bed and staying there all day, but doing other things of like, how am I nourishing my energy? How am I nourishing my body? And it's just been incredibly powerful working with her. And I'm going to be doing offerings. I haven't yet because, I'm a perfectionist. I'm like, what if I do it wrong or blah, 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 blah. But I'm getting there. And Lauren, at some point throughout the episode, it'd be nice to hear how because you have a lot of experience with that. But yeah, and then just a few others that I have around me that I've connected with that have also been just incredible. But right now I need that mother, not so much a kick in the ass, because I'm always kicking myself in the ass, is Lilith. She's a kick in the ass. And eventually I'm going to need that.
It's nice to have both sides.
It's nice to have, there needs to be a balance. And yesterday, actually, I connected with Aphrodite, and that was amazing. There was such a playfulness about her, something I'm also lacking. It's all work, no play. So I'm really excited to get to know her and just see where the relationships go. But it's really incredible to experience divine energy like that.
Becky, what about you?
Oh my goodness. Just like Carrie, I just started working with deities not too long ago, probably about a month or two ago. And they started coming to me in meditation. And at first I was very confused as to what this energy is, because they come more stronger, not so much in a bad way. It's just more tangible. It just feels more closer to human than it does angelic or than it does spirit. And that was the huge point for me where I was like, whoa, what is this? Right? Because it's so different. And at first I was scared. I mean, it's natural to be scared, especially doing this work, because you always hear, you could bring bad things and all this different stuff. But once I started to figure out who it was and I did my research, it was actually Hecate who came to me. And it was and just like Carrie said, they come to you in the time that you need them to come. And if somebody else has Hecate come to them, it's not going to be the same experience as mine. Everyone's experience with different deities are different. But for me, she came to me for confidence, and she was helping me build my confidence in my day-to-day life. And it was a beautiful relationship that I got to experience with her. I don't feel her as much anymore. And I know why. It's because my confidence has, gone up a little bit, and I don't need that crutch anymore. But I definitely feel like there's more deities coming around. I'm just kind of hesitant because I'm like, I got too much going on. I don't want to start another one. But the way that they come to me during readings when I pick up on them with other people is almost the same way as mediumship to me. But I know the feeling, I know the energy. So when it comes a little bit stronger, when it comes a little bit more pressure is the best way I can describe it physically, is a pressure. That's when I know I'm like, okay, who is this? And when I start to ask those questions, like, okay, who is this? Give me a sign, give me a color, give me something. Most of the time they'll give me a name, and other times they'll give me a symbol. Symbols have only happened twice.
Wow.
Once with Carrie. Yep. Once with Carrie, but they come in very detailed manner so that I know who they are. I don't know all of them. There's so many to go through. I'm sure there's a book out there that has like all of them, but but it's such a beautiful experience working with them. And I know that there's a lot of people who have a misconception as to deities and that they're negative, but they're actually here just to empower us, just to help us through life. And it really is a beautiful relationship. And the most thing that I can say, like when people want to start working with them, is definitely do your research, because everyone will tell you a different story, and that doesn't have to pertain to you exactly. That is not your experience with this certain deity. It's always going to be different. So just do your research and know that you don't have to do anything that you don't want to. There are going to be times where they're going to ask you to do something or kind of push yourself out of your element to help you grow. And even though those are great things, sometimes we don't have to do them. Life is about choices, and this is our choice every day that we wake up, that we make these day-to-day choices, minute to minute, and what we decide to do with our life. But they're just here to help us and encourage us and move us through life. So I think that having deities in your life is a very beautiful thing if you know how to navigate with yourself and that connection with them as well. But they all they ask for is respect. I've learned that, through meditation. I've always been praying ever since I was a little girl. I was grown up in a very Christian household. So when I went to Hecate, I prayed, and she kind of picked up my head and she said, we don't do that here. So they don't like to be kind of worshipped in the sort of sense. They like to be respected, and they like to feel like on the same level as you and everyone else, because they are your friends, but they're also just that little bit above you, kind of like parents, just a little bit like I could be best friends with my mom, but at the end of the day, I'm going to have to respect her, So that is my experience with deities.
I like the cool aunt and uncles. You go to them and you can really confide in them, but you still have to respect them because they're your authority. Like that's very much. And you said it so perfectly about how it's more humanized than the angel feelings. That nailed it.
Yeah, they're very earthly. Earthly. Really good way to put it.
Well, I mean, in so many of their stories, they are people. They're people in history, and the stories of them, it's a lot of them are not very human-like because of some of like the things that they do and things like that, but they still are human. And there's so many different deities in different religions, and like it's endless, and you really do have to kind of piece the stories together to pick apart what you think is right or not. And like you said, it's okay if you're not ready to work with them, and you just have that conversation. I have had other deities reach out to me and just had to have the conversation of, I'm not sure that this is like, I hear you, and I want you to stay around and always have this connection, but right here in this moment in time, I'm not sure that it would work. Mostly it's because of Ariane Road, and I just need to really, I do not want to piss her off. I really like her, and also I know that she's strong, but I don't feel like when I've had those conversations of maybe not right now, that I've ruined anything or I've caused harm on myself or those things. Like they're not scary. They shouldn't be scary.
I put Lilith off for months and months and months. Since
and people are scared of her.
My first dream of her was in January, so they understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
What about you, Emily?
So as you guys were talking, I pulled out this book. It's called Where the Gods Left Off, and the author has talked to these deities through like meditation and readings and stuff. And she only has about maybe 40 or 50 that are in this book. And I'm looking at the table of contents of all the ones that she's talked to, and every single one that I have been told is with me or that I feel with me is in this fucking book. I'm like, what the actual fuck? Like all of them, every single one of them out of hundreds. I mean, there's probably thousands, and she only has 40 or 50, and all of the ones are in this book. So I'm just like, and it's sitting right in front of me. I'm like, I need help. And it's right in front of me. Like, God. But anyway, I have quite a few, and I have really cool stories with a lot of them. Like this one time, Becky did a reading on me to find my deities because there was a class that we had and I was sick, so I couldn't attend it. And it was when you guys all read each other, like which deity was with each other. So I was like, Becky, I'm left out. Can you do mine? And she's like, yeah, sure. So she does mine, and she immediately gets Persephone and Hecate, and she says something about pink flowers. And I was like, wait a minute. Earlier that day, I went out to water flowers and they were pink out in my front yard. And I noticed that the deer had eaten them and like pulled them up by the roots and stuff. And then laying right next to it was a fucking snake skin.
Oh, yes.
Persephone comes in the form of deer, and Hecate comes in the form of a fucking snake, and they are buddies. If you know the story, Persephone was taken by Hades down into the, underworld, and Hecate went to go find her and became her maiden. Like they're buddies, they're besties. And right there, and the pink flowers they're both, but especially with Persephone. So it makes sense that Persephone. So I named the deer Persephone, and she comes around all the time, and it's usually when I need her most, and I'll be like, oh, there's she Persephone. Is. Yeah, there she is. And then another crazy story. So I don't want to trigger people, so I'm not going to say the name of this deity, but let me just say there's a lot of misconceptions around this one.
Do you think we should talk about it?
Well, the only reason that I hesitate is because I am not an expert. I just know what I've experienced.
I see. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just starting to work with this one. By no means am I an expert. Just to preface this, I'm not an expert. I'm not fully into it yet. I'm still learning about it, not because I'm scared, but just because I want to do it right.
Right.
So we were learning about the infernals. So the quote unquote demons or darker deities a couple weeks ago in class, and Carrie and Becky can talk about Boone because all three of us experienced it. We can all share our experiences. But anyway, for whatever reason, while we were learning about Boone, sigil was in one of those slides. And I was drawn to it. I was doodling it. Didn't you say you were too? Yeah. Mindlessly doodling it. And I was mindlessly, then I started mindlessly writing his name, but it wasn't my handwriting. And it was just really weird, weird in a cool way, but I'm like, okay, whatever. So we do the meditation and we meet Boone, who's also considered a demon or whatever, which when you're in their presence, they're not. But anyway, and the whole time I'm feeling like I feel, but of course I'm gaslighting myself. No, you're just, it's not him. No. Tell me why after class our mentor, she texts me and she goes, this is random, but this certain deity has been mentioning wanting to work with you. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, Carrie, I was doodling his sigil all during class. I was writing his name, not even in my fucking handwriting, thinking about him. Why am I thinking about him? Because he was here. I was mind blown. And now when I think about like certain things in my life, I can definitely see how this deity has shown up. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to really dive into it. There's no fear attached to it. It's more so I just want to get it right.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I want to have the utmost respect, have the utmost graciousness, because I want to know what I'm doing.
Right. And I think when it comes to the ones that are, people deem as like bad or demons, I have a book that really goes over so much stuff. It's just called the Book of Spells, but it lists so many of the deities and gods and goddesses, and it will put asterisks next to the ones and it does not call them bad, it does not call them demons, it just says they're experienced. And I like that way of talking about them so much more. You don't be afraid of them, just you do want to learn more about them.
Sure.
Have as much knowledge and respect as you can, because they are more strong. They're more, working with them is they're a powerful tool in person to work with. And it's not that you should be afraid of them. Just feel confident.
They're goddesses, kings, dukes, queen. I mean, the list
princesses,
goes on and on.
Yeah.
But one thing that was amazing was, so the deity that Emily's talking about associates with hawks. When I did a very deep meditation with Freya, she showed me a hawk, and we were at my parents' house, and they have a really cool like wooded area where we take the mule back, the little thing, and go back there, and they have like a bonfire pit, and we were just sitting in the mule and we were talking about them. I was talking about Freya, Emily was talking about who,
my deity. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I shit you not, in comes right over our head 15 feet in the air a hawk, and screeching, huge, massive, huge. And we just looked at each other like, you cannot make this up.
No,
you just can't.
No. And we were just watching a TikTok on my deity about him or it, whatever. I don't know.
About them.
And a big picture of a hawk pops up, and then like almost immediately after, it was in real life.
And we heard it the whole time too.
The whole
rest
time.
of the time.
Love that.
It was just hanging out.
Making sure our asses were controlled.
Do you hear me?
It's so cool. It is just so cool. So I want to know, like, with your experience, Lauren, since you've been working with Arian for, as long as I've known you, how long have you been working with her?
It has been at least 4 years now. She has been around since my first job in 2013. I just had no idea it was her. It took a long time to figure it out, and I think my bravest was when she was doing those things, and I didn't realize, like, I didn't put the connection together, but I started being brave for myself because I was going through those night terrors. That's when it started. And then it was around 2016. And that is also when I left that job and I took my next job. I made this I literally turned my life upside down. And it was this weird power of confidence that I didn't know where it was coming from. I figured it out once I started looking into her having these things happen again. And it was around 2019 is when I was like, they were starting up again. And I was like, I need to figure this out. And that's when I found her, and that's when I started working with her. And were you going to ask me like how I honor her? Some of the ways I often use objects to present to them, and I'll put them on my altar, or I'll carry them around. So for Arian Road, I have spider quartz. And it's this tiny little, have you seen those? They're really cool. They're these little like clear quartz, but it has these like black, I guess it's like tourmaline inside, but it like looks like little starbursts or little spiders. I had to get a new one. I don't know. I was doing something with her and I put it, I don't know where, it's in the house, but I got a new one just so she doesn't get mad at me. And then, so for Bridget, I actually make her Bridget knots.
Oh,
I go
wow.
outside and I cut these wreaths from my front, and then I'll make these in just like a little prayer for her. And that is for the spring to kind of it's late winter, but it's to just like a safe winter like spell.
Yeah.
Asking for her to keep everything alive through the cold.
Yes.
And then
Love that.
Hestia, I have a little piggy that I'll put on my altar for her. And I'll sit it in the south with the fire. And so I sit it with my red candle and I just kind of sit her there. But when I first started doing that, I had to have the conversation with Arian Road, and I'll also put my little spider quartz there and be like, you're both here. We need her. So she's here, but like you're still here too.
I love
You're
it.
still number one, okay?
Yeah.
Don't get
Yeah. And with Archangel Ariel, what I've been doing with her lately, when I ask for her help, I'll sit out in nature. I cleaned up my garden so that it was kind of this taking care of my things. And also like, because the winter's coming, I like to do it for any like fairies in there. Keep things clean. Or I'm conscious when I go out for my walks, I make sure if I see trash, I pick it up. And so that I'm doing these things that she loves and respects and wants, so that in return I show that please help me. I will respect and honor you. And so it's just those little actions. It's either the actions that you take for the things they love, or you're using physical items. And I will put them sometimes on my altar, sometimes next to my bed on my end table. I'll put them in windows so they can see them, just kind of wherever I feel called to, where I carry them around.
Yes. And I know like with Lilith, she showed me this ring during meditation. She loves jewelry. She loves rubies. She loves sapphires, and obviously anything black. And so I wear, like, you can wear jewelry in their honor. That's another way to honor them. There's so many ways. And I think people like have the idea that you have to like go above and beyond and be so extravagant and like spend all this money. And like, that is just not true. It's just not true.
Nope. Yeah, this is from my yard.
Yeah.
This is free. My little piggy I went antiquing looking for pigs because I wanted to give it another life. I don't know. It was $1. Like, you go for the things that you're called to and that you feel that they like, that makes them excited.
Yes. And like, I feel like too, with a lot of the goddesses, it's like you honor them most by honoring yourself.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And when you are honoring yourself, like one thing that Lilith likes, that when I do this, or she was the one that really told me to do it, was to honor her when I'm drying my hair after the shower, or I'm brushing my hair in the mirror at my vanity, to talk positive affirmations to myself, like while I'm getting myself ready, while I'm doing
that.
And that's another way that I honor her, because she wants me to honor myself. And I think that's really what they all want.
Yep.
Yeah.
You honor them by honoring yourself.
Becky, have you done anything like that?
I remember there was a time where I was at a park and I wanted to go up to the bridge. There's a bridge that goes over the park, and I wanted to go up there. I'm an introvert. I don't like to be around a lot of people or crowds. And there was a lot of people up there, and I'm like, I'm just happy I made it this far. I'm okay with it. Like, so humble, I'm okay. I can leave. I saw what I needed to see. But then Hecate was like, just do it. I'm like, no, like, I don't want to go up there. There's too many people. It's just like, okay, don't. I'm like, but if I don't, I'm going to be kicking myself that I didn't do it. I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to do it. So I ended up doing it. But it was little things here and there that kind of like pushed me out of my comfort zone. But like I said, they're here to empower us. And I think it's such a beautiful experience when you really get to be in their energy. And it's not all the time that they'll come, but every time that you do something for them, even the littlest gestures, they're always there. They're always there. And they always acknowledge that you did something for them, even if it's for yourself. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
What is it like for you guys in class when you're working with them? Like how does it feel to have them kind of brought to you?
Dude,
it was incredible. We did one recently with Boone, and so Boone doesn't associate with a gender. So like he or she presents however you see them. And for me, I didn't even pick up on a gender at all. And I think everybody's experience was different. Like I couldn't tell. I didn't get like, oh, female or oh, male. But for me, it was intense in the best possible way. You know, she led us through a meditation. We basically visually met this deity Boone at a bonfire on the beach. And I remember like one of the most powerful things for me in that experience was that I remember like putting out my hands, and I was really feeling like they're so physical. Like Becky said, it's earth energy. It really is. Like they're so earthly. And I could feel they were holding my hands. Like it felt like somebody was actually holding my hands. And then the wildest thing was like 7 seconds later, Carrie, our mentor, was like, okay, now put out your hands to hold their hands. And I'm like, I'm already holding it. Like, what is happening? It was so cool. Like, it was just
That's awesome.
And I feel like with anything, and you know, whether you're working with deities or you're doing mediumship or you're doing a psychic reading or you're meditating or you're going into the Akashic records, like whatever it is, the less expectation that you have, the better. Yeah. The more you get, the more you experience. You judge yourself and think, oh, is this really happening or is this just my brain?
Right.
You're just like robbing yourself of a really good experience, of a really empowering experience.
Absolutely.
I forgot one thing that I do to honor them that I feel like costs you nothing, and I have felt the most appreciation from them, is when I journal about them. When I journal about my experiences with them, or like when I did a little drawing of Arian Road when she came to me, and I really couldn't figure out exactly. I think like she kind of just came around, and I was like, I don't know who this really is, but I also did one. This was, let me see, was this Bridget? No, this was her. Okay, so I did this like little drawing, right, of someone that I was like, I don't know, I just kind of feel someone, and then let's see. And then later I finally found her. And so I started writing about her. And then I did, in my actual book of shadows, I did a more representative like picture of her. But I feel like that's such a little way you can connect with them and just be like, I hear you, I feel you, and thank you for being here. And they like that. They're like, oh, cool, I'm in your diary.
Yeah, you can.
Here's a stick figure of Freya, this beautiful goddess of fertility and love, and here's your stick figure.
But you did it. You're there. But the fact that you do it at all is very. I need to show up as a stick figure in someone's thing. Like, you thought of me.
That's
Care
true.
what I look like? I look like a big toe.
Oh gosh.
What do you guys hope to like get from your classes and work with them? Like, where do you hope to go with working with deities?
I personally would love to be an expert, and I would love to one day in the very distant future teach them, educate people on them, especially. My heart's always with the dark ones. Like, my heart is with the dark ones. I really, really, really want to dismantle and help decondition people's beliefs and just feelings around the darker ones, that they're not bad, they're not evil, they're not what we learned in Christianity. But yeah, I want to be very close with all of them.
Yeah. You know, when I first started working with them, I was really, I'm an adult, but I'm scared of the dark. I'm scared. I don't like the dark. If I'm turning off the lights and it's the last light that I'm turning out, I'm running towards my, you know, because it was fear-based in Christianity and any religion, that these bad entities or these bad things, energies were because I opened a portal or because I opened myself up. And so that's always been in the, I'm sorry.
Getting possessed. That's a big one.
Yeah. So it's always been in the back of my mind that, is this possible? Is this not? Like, questions. After having the experience with deities, I'm not scared anymore. I'm not, because now I know that everything that I thought was all in my head. Everything that I was told is not what I experienced. So when you experience it yourself and you go through it yourself, you're like, okay, you know, and the good thing is too, about them being so earthly and tangible, is that yes, I know and I can feel that they're there, but it's not scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when you come into it with an open mind and then and then you start doing your research with an open mind, you can really see the difference in how black and white it really is with, okay, so this is just written because, especially in Christianity, like they just don't want you to believe in other things. It's not,
Right.
it's
Right.
not because they're bad or, you know, that they don't believe it. They just don't want you to.
Right.
And what makes them bad? I mean, if you really look into it, into further into religion, because it's all doctrine, you know, it's all made, literally everything now is just man-made. So you'd have to really do your research in actual scriptures. But in reality, it's who they call infernals or demons or deities. They're people who didn't want to abide by them.
Right.
And that's set them aside.
Yep, that's exactly it. It was people who were outspoken or were going against the conventional and that deemed them bad. And we still do that these days. I mean, God forbid you have an idea or anything that just goes against the grain. All of a sudden you're crazy or you're wrong or you're bad or you're just a lunatic. And it's like, well, did you ever open your mind and think that it could be a different way?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I got my parents on Vikings, and this was like a couple weeks ago, but I was raised Catholic, but my parents weren't really strict on me to like practice. And like, we never went to church really, except for Christmas and Easter. And I got my parents on Vikings. So this was when I was like going through all like the Freya stuff. And there was an episode where they were doing a ritual for Odin and Freya. And, you know, they're doing sacrifices, pagans, they're doing the sacrifices, they're putting the blood on their face, drinking the blood. And my dad was like, those people, that is asinine, like out of their minds. I'm like, well, what part? He's like, they're drinking blood. I'm like, don't Christians drink blood? And he's like, well, it's wine. I'm like, but what do they call it? And he's like, blood. I'm like, hello, are you noticing the synchronicities here?
Right.
It is so funny to hear them call stories absolute ludicrous. And then I'm like, you have stories that are also ludicrous, like your chariot in the sky. That, like, how is that different? How is that fucking different?
Contradicting.
It's not. But
it's just not theirs.
And that's the way I'm going to raise awareness, is because they always get caught in their own stuff. But my dad, he had nothing to say. He was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, Dad, like everything that the Christians do is stolen from the pagans.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. Exactly.
But like, as far as like where I plan to go on the journey of like working with deities, for me right now, I just want to like heal because I am a healer and I need to be healed. And I'm not expecting to be fully healed, but I know that they're going to aid me in that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm realizing that the further I get on this journey, I'm like unlocking new levels of healing. Like, okay, we're feeling really good. And then something happens and there's a trigger. And then, you know, I'm kind of feel like I'm taking 5 steps back, and it's like, no, it's just, we've reached a new level.
Right.
It's getting deeper now. It's getting deeper now. And I'm realizing like all of these life changes and, you know, we all know, starting our own business, leaving behind what was to what moving into what is. It's hard, and I'm realizing I need help. I need help outside of myself, and that's what they're here to do. And so for me, I just want help and healing, and see where it goes from there. You know, see where it goes.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for the journey for sure.
Yeah. Don't you hate that? It always feels like that when you're going through the worst moment and you feel like this is it, this is the end, right? That there's no possible way that I can go further after this because life is so hard, is when Spirit's like, well, we're elevating you. We're bringing you up a step. That's why it's so hard. And I'm like, thanks.
I hate it. And it never ends.
Warning next time.
Right.
Yeah. There's always work to be done, right? Like it never ends.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
So I have this Divine Feminine deck that I was going to do the collective thing on.
Let's do it.
That's perfect. I love that.
Yeah. So we're going to be doing a collective reading as promised. And I'm going to be doing mine with the Divine Feminine deck by Megan Watterson, who writes the Mary Magdalene. What is it?
The Gospel of
Mary Magdalene Revealed.
Yeah.
And this deck has a bunch of divine feminine goddesses, some that we've talked about, some that we haven't. And then it'll explain the goddesses and why she's coming up. So let's shuffle.
Who do we got today?
I know.
Yeah. I love that deck.
Do you have it?
No, but I just love that it has the information with them too.
Yeah. And that's a really good book. Lauren.
Oh my
If
God.
you ever want to read.
I have that on my, we talked about that. You told me about that when we had talked, when the same deity who reached out to Emily came through to you in a reading to me, which is funny because I see those hawks all the time.
Yep.
All the freaking time.
So up in your energy, it ain't even funny. Ari and Rhodes like
She's understanding as long as we have the conversation first.
yes.
Right. All right. Who do we have? All right. So I'm going to butcher this name. Khadija, the mother of believers. I am spiritually and financially abundant. I provide heaven and earth for myself. Well, shit.
Yeah.
Not spirit calling us all out. I think we're all feeling a little broke. And here spirit goes telling us that we're not. I can't help but laugh.
I know. All right. What do you got to say, Spirit?
I know. Well, first, a little bit about her. Khadija is the power we all possess to be aware of the spiritual realm and fully immersed in the material world. Khadija bint Khuwaylid, I'm so sorry, was a widow of Saudi Arabia in the 6th century. She became a wealthy merchant who was deeply respected and known as Al-Tahira, the Pure One, or Al-Kubra, the Great. It is said that with her wealth, she fed the poor, provided for her children from her first 2 marriages, and took care of her extended family. Khadija had a dream shortly after hiring a young merchant named Muhammad to work for her. In the dream, the sun descended into her courtyard, fully illuminating her home. Her cousin told her that this meant that the prophet would soon grace her doorstep. She realized that her new employee, Muhammad, was the prophet, and so she asked him to marry her. They were married for 25 years. She was regarded as one of the most important female figures in Islam, followed by her daughter, the prophet Fatima. It is said that when Muhammad told Khadija about his first revelation from the angel Gabriel in the cave of Hira, she was the first person to convert to Islam. Muhammad remarried after Khadija's death, but never closer to a subsequent wife than he had been with her. She was his confidant and partner. When your soul selects her card, this means that there's an ancient narrative and a misunderstanding that if we are going to be spiritual, then we have to renounce the material world. The body, however, is the soul's chance to be here. So relationship to the material world is crucial and integral to reach spiritual potential. Khadija represents the power and importance of knowing we can provide for ourselves. This power gives us roots and confidence and allows us to create relationships from a place of interdependence rather than codependence. We can cultivate the capacity we have to create more and more freedom for ourselves. And we can make choices for our life based on truth, not just on survival. There's also a false idea that love will find us and how. Khadija liberates from fairy tales that we need to be saved or supported and provided for by our life partner. Khadija provided for the prophet, and her older age and significant status in the community made her more attractive, not less. She was a middle-aged businesswoman and single mom. She was ripe with resources and ripened with opportunities to love. Living into our true power and purpose does not make us less eligible. Khadija reminds us that there is no linear timetable that eliminates us from having the sun descend in our courtyard. She lets us remember that we are worthy of the abundance measured in gold and the abundance measured in the depth of our love. And the intention for her, I am spiritually and financially abundant. I provide heaven and earth for myself.
Oh, I have so many chills. Not even funny. Whew.
Wow.
Every time.
Mic drop. Dude, and here's her.
Oh,
She was a boss bitch.
Yeah.
Love that.
The body chills on that one.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say. Those spot on.
I know that was just very. What'd you say, Emily?
She provided for her husband.
I know. I love that I love that. And she's older. Like that, the things that are so taboo, even today, thousands of years later.
Unreal.
It goes to show you, like, it's just rewritten bullshit. Sorry, just is.
Yep. So
let's go ahead and wrap it up.
You do it, Lauren. You do it so good.
Okay, well, thank you guys for being here today and talking deities. And thank you, Becky, for joining us. And you can find us on, well, actually, first of all, I want to say when you're going to go into working with deities, do it responsibly, look into them, look up, make sure it feels right. And if it doesn't, just have that conversation. It's totally fine to say, I'm not ready, just like you can with everything else in your life. So you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Team Spirit Podcast. And you can find Emily, Carrie, and Becky on TikTok live doing readings. Emily can be found at Enchanted Mystic by MK, Carrie at Clarity by Cam, and Becky can be found at Becky_Reina. So if you like this episode, please rate, review, tell us what you think, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes. Thanks for being here.